Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Mortgage Coach Tuesday interview. My name is Dave Savage. It's always an honor to be interviewing someone amazing. As many of you know, every Tuesday, 9 o'clock Pacific, we're interviewing authors, speakers, and today we have an awesome mortgage professional. Can't wait to get into that conversation. Do want to remind you that we are dedicated to your training, so every Monday we're doing Introduction to Mortgage Coach. If you haven't done 20, Mortgage Coach Total Cost Analysis, come to that. Every Wednesday we are dedicated to making you turning your mobile device into your #1 sales and teaching tool. So it's all about mobile conversations. Also, we are recording this, but remind everybody that we have just an amazing YouTube channel. Over 1,200 videos. They've been watched over 150,000 times. We've got 30 playlists. So 3 of the most watched playlists are all-time. Those are the videos that I have selected as what I think are some of the best all-time interviews. Our how-to playlist is everything you want to know how to do with Mortgage Coach. It's in there. And, of course, MC Scripts just seems to rock, sales scripts on Mortgage Coach. So make sure you're subscribing to that and making sure that you're making that part of your educational process. So it's been an awesome month. Chris Devin is our guest today. Welcome to the call, Chris.
Thanks, Dave, for having me. It's like to be here.
Well, it's good to have you. I think this is our 3rd interview. I think my first interview was at Sales Mastery on stage in front of, 1,200 people. And I think I've interviewed you at least one time in a format like this, so it's really good to have you, brother.
It's a pleasure to be here. Really excited. Thank you.
Good. Well, hey, you've got some tough shoes to follow. We had Hal Elrod last week, and the first interview of the week was with Wally. And, Wally made my all-time list. I mean, it was one of my all-time favorite interviews. For folks that did miss the call with Hal last week, I do want to remind you of some of the takeaways. These were the 5 that I thought were the most valuable, although I think there was a lot of great takeaways. We talked about writing down your business and personal goals. What is your #1 mission? That was a big takeaway. It's great to have 3, more than 5, but what is the mission? What is the #1? And then, break that down into monthly targets. He talked about this concept of making sure they're SMART goals. And then he closed with get an accountability coach. Everybody needs accountability, and you can only be, your best and be beyond your best with an accountability coach. Quick reminder on what is a SMART goal. Be specific, be measurable. It's got to be attainable. Can't be so far-reaching that it's just not in high probability of attaining it. It's got to be relevant, and it's got to be time-based. So again, I want to make sure to remember, watch the Wally interview. That call is trending. It's almost been watched 500 times. So it's only been a couple weeks, and I would not be at all surprised if we surpassed 500 views of that video by the end of this week. So remember to check it out. So our focus, our mission is all about education. We believe that every time a family gets into debt, they need graphs and charts. I do want to do a shout out for an awesome mortgage coach out of the Dallas, Texas market, Denise Donahue. If you are on this call, hello. And great job on your post this last week. She made this post. I thought it was really clever. This is from Instagram, although I think she also pushed it on Facebook. Well, she did. The one on the right is a Facebook post, and on the left, that's what it looks like in Instagram. So, Denise, if you are on this call, would love some comments as to any results you received, any leads, just positive feedback. I know when I took a picture of it, you were up to, 17, 18, 19 likes, maybe 20, so you did get engagement. So, Denise, if you've got any feedback, feel free to either raise your hand at some point or provide some commentary. And thank you for your leadership. Great job at using social to be a mortgage coach. So Chris, this call is all about you. While I do want to kind of unpack it around your story, I do know when you and I were preparing, you talked about how one of your goals is to take your engagement and value on social to another level. Did you happen to see this post from Denise?
I actually just made a note to myself that I have to do that. I love it. Absolutely fantastic. It's one of the things that I'm trying to really push this year is the social media piece, and being able to put pictures like that on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook is a no-brainer. Absolutely love that, Dave.
Right on. Well, again, Chris is an amazing mortgage coach professional. I mean, he's top producer by anyone's measure. When we did our last interview, we called it The Power of Thinking Big. And that was, I think, either you had just started your relationship with Boston.com.
Just started it. Yep. Yep, correct.
So it was kind of like you were going from, hey, I'm doing some small time things to, it's a big relationship now. It's north of $100,000 a year investing, if I remember, and you obviously came off a great year. You closed 148 loans last year for $57 million in volume. So I want to do two things as we kick off the call. If you could just do kind of a minute on, do you have a team? Kind of describe your market, your production, and then we'll do your kind of story, because you do have a great story of how you've overcome adversity to get to where you're at.
Sure, absolutely. So I'm on the South Shore of Boston. I've been in the business for about 13, 14 years now, and really consider myself the grinder. I feel like I've tried a lot of things in the industry, try to think as much as possible outside the box. I do have a team here in Hingham, Massachusetts. It consists of 4 people. I have 2 processors and sales assistant, and we work closely here and basically just gotten ourselves to a position where we did do $57 million last year, but I really have my eyes set on $100 million. I feel like we've put the process and team in place to do that, mortgage coach being a major piece of that as well.
Great.
Dave,
go ahead, Chris.
No, you mentioned about the last call, and I'm a frequent listener to the mortgage coach calls, and I honestly am honored to be here, because I don't think of myself a lot of the time as being worthy of being on one of these calls. I'm a grinder. To those people out there who are just looking at this stuff, thinking, geez, these guys are doing numbers. How do I get there? And it's one of those things. When I look back, when I was getting ready for the call today, it's all about a process and just pulling in the best tools that you can in the business to separate yourself. And I'm excited to share my story.
Yeah, no, I am too. So, a lot of folks, that come to these calls, they know that, doing video is important. They know that leveraging media is important, but, they don't do it. Either one, they're not comfortable with how they look, they're not comfortable with how they sound. There's a lot of insecurities that hold back mortgage professionals from really leveraging media, leveraging video, leveraging modern media. So why don't we start with your story? Because I know it well. You have told it, but you're not the typical guy that gets up in front of the camera, or the typical guy that hosts a radio show. You had to overcome a lot of adversity, and you do on a daily basis. So why don't you tell your story, and then let's get into some tactics around what you're doing and how you're doing it.
Absolutely. So, the fact that I'm on the radio and making videos right now, if you told me that I was going to be doing this 5 or 6 years ago, I would have told you that you were crazy. My story is that my whole life I've had a speech impediment where I block. It's technically called stuttering, but I really block on a consistent basis, whether I'm in front of a mirror talking to myself or talking in front of a big group. Not necessarily nerves. It's something that I've had to deal with my whole life, to the point that I've had speech therapy pretty much all through my schooling years. Got away from it in college, became a father at the time of 2 boys, and had been in the mortgage business for a few years, and realized to kind of take my business to the next level, I had to do a few things, and I came across a couple opportunities that required me to speak, and I turned down those opportunities because I was really starting to have life was getting really busy. My speech therapy had kind of subsided, and I wasn't being consistent with trying to stay on track with it, and it was getting worse, and it was starting to overtake my thought process and how I presented myself, and it was really going the wrong direction. And to make a long story short, I looked into speech therapy, which can be very expensive for adults, and found this woman, Diane Paris, at Boston University, who was a diamond in the rough and really helped me get back on track. And it's funny how things happen. This is back in 2009. I met her in the end of 2010. I was working with my coach, Ron Quintero, who's a great guy out of California, and he had introduced me to the thought of becoming a radio show host. And I had not shared with him the speech side of it at that point, but I thought that the idea was crazy. And I'm not a radio show host. I have no history of being in the media, nor did I really want to be. And he kind of kept dripping on me and pushing me to do it. In the same stretch, I was going through speech therapy at Boston University. And part of my process was in giving back to the woman, Diane, who was helping me, is to speak to her students on a monthly basis. So I had shared with her this opportunity, and that I thought it was crazy and I wasn't going to do it. And she brought it up in the middle of a class. And, I have the students in front of me. She put me on the spot. She asked me to share what I was thinking about. And I knew in my gut that I wanted to do it. I was just afraid of taking that jump, kind of exposing myself, because I had never talked about my speech with anybody, a little bit with my wife, but really anybody in the world outside of my family. So, I was getting to the point where I was advertising it a little bit more, and I was feeling more comfortable, and I shared this opportunity with the class, and it was like an overwhelming reaction, like, you have to do it. And it was one of those moments. It was a life-changing experience for me, because I'm like, you know what? Step up. You found the speech therapy because you saw it going the wrong way. You were struggling with it. How do you want to be seen by your boys? You're talking to them about leading by example. Well, lead by example and take a jump here. So, I'm a huge hockey fan, and one of my favorite quotes of all time is from Wayne Gretzky, and he always says, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And my thought was, okay, I'm going to take my shot. I'm going to give it a try. And this seems absolutely crazy to me, completely outside the box of anything that I would ever do, but I'm going to give it a shot. And that was back in April of 2011. April 29, 2011 was my first show on the radio, and it was a grind, but we've made it to the point that we're still moving along today, and now I guess you consider it in the media, where I've had a successful radio show called Real Estate Talk Boston. I was on a network called Money Matters Radio here locally. And it's one of those things that it was a grind, out of the gate, trying to figure out, how to put together this show. The Real Estate Radio Network did a fantastic job of giving me an outline and helping put the show together. But for me, the speech piece of it played a major role, and it's really been the 800-pound gorilla that I've been carrying around my whole life, that is just constantly saying, just kind of trying to pull me back. So to be able to get into this and get a little bit of traction out of the gate, it was a huge boost of confidence. And what I realized early on, Dave, is that it wasn't about me. I was focusing on how I sounded, and I thought I sounded awful, and I wasn't a good radio show host. And I realized is when I got on air and I was bringing in these top agents in the local marketplace, I was just having a conversation with them, and I kind of let go of how I sounded. You know, you can get bogged down in the intros and the outros and how to be a host. And at some point I realized, you know what, I'm going to practice that stuff, but it's not going to dominate my thought process. I'm going to work on, you know, delivering the timely truths of what's going on in our local real estate market. My whole thought is that, you know what, you can turn on the Today Show and you can go on these major websites, Zula and Trulia, and read these articles. But, you know, for the people that are here local in Boston, you know, what you pull from one of those main articles, mainstream articles, might not be what's happening here in our local marketplace. So I really try to focus on, you know, what is going on in our local marketplace. And what's interesting about the Boston market, I can't speak for other markets, but within Boston is that you could have 4 or 5 towns that are right around each other, but all behaving a little bit differently, or sometimes opposites of each other. So that's what's fun about it, is that, you know, we're having an impact on the marketplace. People are now turning to us for information, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah, no doubt. So, I mean, you've gone from someone who, you know, was insecure to even admit that you had this challenge, even though it's obvious. Someone talks to you, you know, they know, but you didn't even want to talk about it. It was just something you hid, to something you declared, something that you've overcome, and now today, let's just go through, you know, when you say that you're a local, you know, you're leveraging local media. If you could just kind of give us an inventory. You know, I know the radio show and this website right here is kind of the cornerstone, but just in a minute or two, list out all the different media resources that you have in the marketplace. And by the way, everybody, in chat of GoToMeeting, I'm going to put a link to Chris's website. Here's Chris's website. And also, if you do have questions, please post those in the GoToMeeting or in chat, and when I get opportunities, I will bring those into the conversation. So, Chris, let's roll. What are we looking at, and then if you could tell us what else you have going.
Sure. So the show started out on Money Matters Radio, which is an AM station here locally, covers the 128 belt for those that know Boston. So we're hitting a pretty good audience, but it was on an AM station, a great way to kind of get into the media, because it allowed me where I wasn't like in the spotlight, so to say, but I was able to get some traction. And what's great about this show and how it's helped my business is because, you know, I'm calling on real estate agents, in most cases top agents in the local market, to come on to speak on their market. And so rather than talking about rates and service, you know, we're inviting them on the show. It's a great way to create relationships. It's not immediate business, but you're creating relationships through the show, talking about the local market. So, you know, Real Estate Talk Boston started on Money Matters Radio, but now has gone to what you're showing right now, Dave, which is the Boston.com piece. So we are on Radio BDC, which is Boston.com's radio station. That is online radio, and then this page that you're looking at, a couple years ago I had the idea of kind of changing it from just radio to having more of an online presence, and I saw the direction of video, and I said, you know what, let's bring this to a video platform as well. So the videos can be seen on Boston.com in the real estate section. We also have the radio component. The show airs weekly on Money Matters Radio and Radio BDC, and within that website as well, it has a blog format. So if there's any hot topics, you know, the Fed comes out with their announcement, whatever it might be, we can make blog posts which also sit on the Boston.com site.
So how many, you know, just give us some sense within your, call it radio and this online presence, of how many family and agents are you, you know, either you have their attention or you're delivering content and insight that has value. What's the distribution of this?
the distribution of how many people see this information, you mean?
Yeah, ballpark.
So
on
on Boston.com, there's 35 million sets of eyeballs that hit the Boston.com front page every single month. So this is a pretty wide spectrum of, from the real estate community. It's really getting out there and promoting it. But like anything, I feel like sometimes people are looking for that secret sauce or the quick thing that's going to take you from 0 to 100 overnight. Media has not been an overnight hit for me. It's been something that it has given me an avenue where when you stay consistent, it can really turn into something, because it started out, nobody knew what Real Estate Talk Boston was, and I was doing a weekly show on the radio. When we took it to the Boston.com piece, it brought in a lot more eyeballs because people are aware of Boston.com. It's the #1 website in New England, so they're aware of it, and people were starting to see me do it that way. But now when you talk about bringing more eyeballs to the page, you're bringing in these real estate agents who want to be seen and grow their businesses as well. So everybody that you bring into the show, they're reaching out through their social media in most cases, whether it be Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and they're taking the pictures, sharing the links to the radio segments, sharing their links to the videos, where it's really kind of grows organically. Like anything, it's not, it started out where it was just an idea and I jumped on air, to the point now I'm looking at right now, the Altman brothers from $1 Million Listing, they're Boston guys. They obviously are in LA and they're having a huge success with the show and their business. They came in to speak at a local realtor event. We connected with them. They came into the Globe. I spent half a day with them, and one of those situations where I kind of took a step back. I'm like, wait a second, these guys are on $1 Million Listing. They're huge players. They're a household name for a lot of people, and here they are on my show, just explaining what they're doing, and that so many people want to hear the behind the scenes of what they're doing. It's just a great platform to share it on. So, that's another huge thing, is that going through the media and growing your presence through the media opens up a lot of doors. And I can't stress that enough. Whether it be the president of a real estate company or real estate office, everybody's willing to listen and wants to hear more, and majority of the people want to come on the show. We're to the point right now where we have a separate email. It's tough to manage the number of inquiries that come in where people are trying to get onto our platform. They want to be a part of the show. And they give us feedback of what they liked and didn't like, and it's really an eye-opening experience, because, like I said, I'm a grinder, just a normal guy from Boston who's trying to grow his business and get his name out there, and I think it's the consistency and staying with it over the past 5 years. I can't believe this April it's going to be 5 years, Dave, that we've had the show, and we're to the point right now where people are reaching out to us. How do we get on the show? Or I was in the hockey rink with my son last weekend, and I had sweats and a hat on, and a woman stopped me, and she said, "Geez, you dressed down today." And I said, I had no idea who she was. I said, "Yeah, it's a Saturday morning. I'm in the hockey rink with my son." And she said, "I just want to let you know I'm a big fan of your show." And that kind of took me back. I'm like, wow. That's crazy that people are watching and listening, and it's obviously having an impact on our local marketplace.
Love it, love it. So let's talk two things. So let's say we're 23 minutes into the call. We still have a solid 20 minutes, 30 minutes of talk time to pull out some of this value. So you've got this platform, you've built it. Obviously there's I'm getting leads of families that are buying homes, and I think that's what a lot of people just kind of intuitively want and think that it's all about. Although, because I know the media business well, and I know your story well, dating back to your involvement even today with the Real Estate Radio Network, that a lot of it is just leveraging the media platform to be valuable to realtors. To be able to have access to and not just realtors, referral partners.
Correct.
the best financial planner in your community you're meeting with, and you can come in and blow their mind with an interview. So let's talk about how you're leveraging media to get meetings with partners, and let's transition to, and we've spent the last 20 minutes, how are you, what are you saying on the air or in your media channels? And then, of course, as a mortgage coach, you want to drive them into an educational borrower conversation. So let's start with partners. Let's end with the whole borrower conversation. So how, what does it sound like when you call a realtor or a referral partner? I want to get an idea, and I'm sure other people, whether they have big platforms like yours or they have baby platforms, how do you get the meeting with the partner leveraging your platform?
So in regards to Real Estate Talk Boston, I used to be the direct contact. I actually now have hired an assistant who reaches out to different guests on a weekly basis to try to get them on. But really, the way that we position it is, we love to have you on our show to talk about what's going on in your marketplace. We've identified you as a top agent in whatever market it is, and we explain what our show is about, delivering the timely truths of what's going on in the greater Boston area. And we're trying to educate our listener, whether they're buying or selling real estate. Would you be interested in coming on the show? 9 out of 10 times the answer is yes. It might not be in the time frame of the exact show that we asked them to come on, but if it's not, we just set them up for another show. And we're creating an experience. That's what's really cool is that, at first when I went on air, I was kind of in awe. I'm in the studio and behind the mic. I'm like, this is crazy. And now after doing it for 4 or 5 years, you get to the point where it's a lot easier to manage, and you realize when these agents are coming in, just a lot of people most people have not been on the radio or in front of a camera in this capacity, and you're creating an experience. So I might not have even, in most cases, I haven't even met or spoken with the agent until they get in studio. So we usually go through the interview. I let them know prior. I give them a little history of the show. I explain that I'm on the lending side of things. I work for Guaranteed Rate locally here in Boston. This is the purpose of the show. It's not about me. It's not about you. We're trying to educate the listener on really what's going on. How do you buy a home in today's market? Where are interest rates going? Can you fit into that move-up buyer niche? How do you buy a home if you sell a home? There's so many different angles that you can attack a show, and it's pretty cool. And a lot of times, we'll get a list. Ellen will get a list of questions that they'd like to be asked going into the segment. So we get comfortable with the agent. We go through the interview. Most of them are nervous to go on air, and by the time the show is over, they want to come back. They're like, when can I do this again? And you've created an experience for them, which opens up the ability to have a warm conversation. And in most cases, what I try to do is take the show to a coffee meeting. And you're sitting there like you've just given them something of huge value, and now you're trying to just learn more about each other's business and how you're positioned as top professionals in our local marketplace. How can we help each other get better and spread the word? And it's just a lot more of a warmer welcome, I guess you could call it, versus just knocking on doors with rate sheets and saying that you have the best service out there. A lot of times it just falls into the business side of things after I've gotten to know them as an actual person up front.
Got it. So Dennis just asked a really good question, and I think a lot of loan officers want to know the answer to this, but when you really look at the time you've invested, and again, just think of it hours a week, to have this media present versus being a mortgage professional, consulting families and borrowers. So, what type of time investment do you do in the media presence? And by the way, everybody else, feel free to ask questions. I'll bring them into the conversation. But please, you can answer that.
Up front, I consider myself a unique situation in a lot of ways because I could spend 3 hours explaining the speech side of it. Just trust me when I tell you that that's been a major part of my life in overcoming speech impediment, which I sound okay right now, but like I said, it could be good days, bad days, where it's a constant battle to sound the way that I do right now at the moment. It's not always easy for me, and what my concern is that if I block, I might not sound intelligent, or clients or agents might not think that I know what I'm talking about. So that's something that I spent a lot of time up front, especially with the fluency piece of it and just like the preparation for the show. But really, when it comes down to the show right now, I'm getting to the point where the less preparation, the better. And it sounds crazy, but it's turning out to be true, that I now know the mechanics. I have my show platform and outline set up. I know how to bring people in and out of segments. So I have an outline, usually that's provided to me from the agent prior. We put that on them. If they want to talk about specific things, we'll give them the guide and have them kind of fill it in. So when I get in on a Thursday to do my show, really prior to the show, I'm not putting in more than, I would say, an hour, 2 hour tops that day of preparation. Now, up front, it did take me more time, and I usually worked on the show at night. So during the day, I'm dealing with clients and making my calls and dealing with the pipeline. And at night, I would set it up where I would, work through how the show was going to be set up, the questions that I wanted to ask, so on and so forth. But right now, I'd say in regards to what goes into the show, from the radio side of it, it's an hour or two prior, and it's an hour in studio with the guests. But remember, that time in studio, you're checking the box of face-to-face meetings. You're spending time, quality time, with top professionals in your market. So I think that there's obviously a huge value to that, preparing for an hour or two to sit down with potentially 2, 3 top professionals in your local marketplace that then turn into coffee meetings, usually for later on that week or the following week. From the video side of it, same thing. I record videos in studio on Tuesdays, and it's gotten to the point where right now, a lot of times we'll go in, we'll do a 30-minute prep before the videos for the day, and we talk it through with the guests and say, what are you seeing out there right now? What do you think is important to deliver for your message? And a lot of them have comments, and you're having a great conversation with them, spending face-to-face time, and then you get in front of the camera, you whack it out, and now we have content that not only Boston.com shares, I can share, the agent shares, and the agent, 9 out of 10 times comes back and is like, geez, can I share this? And the answer is absolutely. So the show grows through them sharing it on their Facebook pages, whether it be the video or the radio segment. It's pretty cool to see the hits on the videos and kind of where it goes, and the people, the friends and clients of the agents, and the reaction that they get from their audience is really cool.
Nice. So, by the way, the questions and comments are flooding in. They're starting to flood in. I do want to transition within the next 7 minutes into, how you go from having a media presence to educating a family and driving that part. But first, Marty had mentioned that he also has a show in the Seattle market, and he wanted to, he talked about how he's always looking for hot topics. He said, do you have folks like Rob Chrisman and regional economist and regulatory folks call in? So, that is a question from Marty.
The answer is yes, and a focus in 2016 is to do it more than we have in the past. A lot of times we've just kept it to professionals in the local market. Yes, we have featured national economists and people like that in the past, and I think it's a great way to tie to tie in what's going on in the national market into the local show. A lot of people don't really know or aren't looking for the information that we have at our fingertips being in the industry.
Cool. And then one more question, and then let's transition into how we take a media presence, borrow a conversation, and drive that conversation. But Brian said, is there one thing at a minimum to get into media now that you would be advertising and spending time on? And then he kind of added on to it, would it be YouTube? So big question. He tried to lead us into YouTube. That might be your answer. That might not. But what would be the one thing you would tell people right now? You know, they don't have a media presence. They're not doing anything. What's the one thing they should start doing tomorrow?
I really think it's video. Now, whether you use YouTube or Vimeo, whatever the avenue is, I think video is definitely the way of the world and the direction everything's going. You know, just showing that you have a voice, so whether it's radio, video, getting the word out there and being consistent. And I think a lot of people get frustrated because they can create these videos, but there's not a lot of traction up front. And they say, oh, you know what, I only had 10, 15, 100 views, whatever it is, and think that, you know, well, how do these people get to, you know, tens of thousands of views? I think it's really being consistent, locking in on a way to get your name out there and sharing it. You know, even if it's just creating a YouTube video that you post on your Facebook page, and then you have the ability to boost it within Facebook, that can be very effective, right? So I've gotten the greatest response off of the videos, and I personally do have a YouTube channel. It's called Real Estate Talk Boston, where all of our videos from the beginning of the show are posted. But video definitely seems to be the way. I don't do anything special within YouTube, though, to answer that question.
Yeah, well, I can assure you, you know, the answer is no question video. I'm actually showing a video I did with Dave Ramsey. While I interviewed Dave for 40 minutes, I cut out this piece, 3 minutes and 12 seconds, or the mortgage coach team here did. And Dave did he did a whole rant on the power of video and why that is, you know, everybody needs to be doing it. It is the #1 thing to do. I'm going to post this link in the chat of the GoToMeeting, and also urge everybody, you know, if you haven't already, subscribe to the Mortgage Coach page. But I just put this video in, and Dave will talk about video and mobile. And yeah, if there's one thing that everybody on this call should be doing, it's video. And if there's one place you start with video as a mortgage coach, it's just creating the video that you put in front of a TCA. I mean, every time a family gets into debt, you want to make sure that they get that with graphs and charts, and you want to make sure there's a video on it. So, Chris, I mean, that's a great segue. You know, what percentage of your clients, you know, when you're delivering a mortgage coach total cost analysis, you know, what percentage of them are getting a video from you?
I would say, putting a number on it, I'd say they get 70 to 80% of the time they're getting a mortgage coach video from me. And Dave, you had asked me on the pre-call, you know, if I'm using video every time with the report, and the answer is yes, 100%. It's a no-brainer. I just had a client last week who reached out to me, and they were so wowed about the video and just the presentation that they were trying to figure out how they could implement it into their business. And they're in, you know, a completely different industry. But he said the impact, you know, he kept asking me questions about, you know, the technology, and I had to kind of direct them back to the topic at hand, but it has that impact on people. I mean, you've created something, and I've been a mortgage coach user since, I think, 2007, when I was mailing out the TCA reports to people on the Rate Watch. I mean, you've always been ahead of the game, a true innovator, and the fact that you've made video so simple, and the report comes out, you know, right in front of you, and then you can explain it to the client. And to take it one step further, they can see it on any of their mobile devices. It truly is a game changer.
Yeah. So folks, I mean, I always like to, when I'm interviewing someone super successful like this, great chance to see the template in the email and the way that he delivers that link. But, now when the family clicks on that link, if they click on it from a desktop, they get it via the desktop. They click on it from a mobile, they're getting your picture, your branding, the details of the loan, the payment summary of the loan, the cost over 7 years, the cost over a long period of time, and they're getting it with a video. So there's no doubt that is the way to roll. I do urge everybody on this call. We really want to get everybody through the Mortgage Coach, everybody in the Mortgage Coach community through our mobile training. So every Wednesday at 11 o'clock, we're doing this training. And then, we're taking the best one, and I'll put a link to this in the chat. You can listen to the recording. And it's everything from how to distribute it via video, how to create it via video, everything that you need to know how to do with Mortgage Coach on your mobile device is in this training. So if you haven't been on it, check it out. Now, I get a lot of questions from folks. What's the cost? Obviously, you, Ron Quintero, good friend of mine, is your coach. Why don't you handle those offline? If anybody wants to learn more about radio, either connect with Chris on LinkedIn or Facebook. Chris, what is your preferred way that if anybody has questions, really get into the weeds? Realize, everybody, that Chris is a professional mortgage professional. He's not, he's not a coach, he's not a consultant. So please, ask questions thoughtfully and be respectful of his time. I don't want him to get flooded and, feel like it was anything but valuable to be on this call. But if people did want to reach out to you, Chris, and get more detailed questions answered, how would they best do that?
Email is probably the best way, which is cdevin, C-D-E-V-I-N, @guaranteedrate.com. I'm more than happy to answer any questions that people have. Dave, just as you show this report, just something sticks out to me, and that has really changed the game for me with Mortgage Coach, is that I feel like 9 out of 10 people that I meet up front after being referred to them through the agent or whoever it came from, usually they're excited about a home, they're looking to make an offer, they're overwhelmed because there's so many different things going on, and when the mortgage topic does come up, most of them just default to, I want a 30-year fix. And you bring up ARMs, at least around where I am, a lot of people are hesitant about them, they don't understand them. And you can have a detailed conversation with somebody. A lot of times they're doing something else, and I think the general rule of thumb is that people retain, like 20-30% of a conversation. So a lot goes in one ear and out the other. When you're able to follow up after the conversation, tie in your referral partner, give them a little boost as well, and then say to the client, listen, I know you're a little overwhelmed, just to follow up to what we went through on our call, here are your different options, and they can see it rather than just hear it, and it breaks it down in such a simple format. It's truly amazing. And what you find is, or I find at least, and the fact that your technology allows us to see when somebody viewed the report, when to follow up with them. And in most cases, I'll see the report viewed, and then 10 minutes later, I'll see it reviewed again. And then, I'll be sitting on the couch watching TV at the nightly news and see videos reviewed again. So people are watching it, they're going back to it because they can understand it. And a lot of people, rather than just defaulting to what they think is right because they don't want to deal with it or they're overwhelmed by it, Mortgage Coach really brings their scenario to life, and it helps them understand what their best options are, because most people don't realize that they have options, right? And they just default to what their dad told them or what their cousin told them or their coworker just shared with them. So it really is a true game changer for my business.
Yeah, so folks, while having a radio show where you're doing interviews and you're creating content for a broad market, great strategy, absolutely do it, but making sure each and every family is getting your total cost analysis and they're getting it with your video, with your commentary, with your personality. I mean, this is a requirement for many of the most successful loan officers in the country, and you're going to get a lot of value because not only the person that you're communicating with is watching that video, everybody that's helping them make that decision and it's involved in that decision is watching it. So on average, it's going to get watched 2, 3, 4, 5 times, and then you're going to be better, you're going to be more comfortable, and when you go and you do your show, you're going to rock it out even more. So, some last advice from Dave Ramsey, and again, listen to that video that I put in chat, but, keep those videos under a minute and a half. Dave said under a minute and 26 seconds. Keep them brief, keep them tight. So by the way, really good question, because I always do these calls. I just want to deliver value. So please keep the questions coming. But if we can help anybody get over a challenge, and I don't know whether Randy has this challenge or not, but someone asked, why did you seek a speech therapist? Kind of deep, but what was it? Why did you go? You had this challenge, but here in your adult life, why did you go and seek? Did you just feel like that was your only hope to get over this challenge? But he wants to know why.
When I was, it really started in the second grade, I was involved with pretty intense speech therapy right through high school. In sixth grade, I had this woman, Mrs. Curran, who 6th through 8th grade kind of taught me how to speak fluently. So it was, I've come across people and they're like, you sound great. There is no speech impediment. That's due to practice and daily routines that are able to get me through the day. It has had a major impact on my life and has played a major role in my life since I was in 1st or 2nd grade. So when I saw it kind of creeping back into my life, I let it go post-college and getting into the work world and all that stuff. It kind of got away from me, and I had created Band-Aids for certain situations to get through, or a crutch, whatever you want to call it. So I got good at what I called masking my speech impediment, but I realized that I was trying to throw too many Band-Aids on it, and why I went back to it is because I decided to really go back to the basics and say, you know what, this is part of who I am. It's obviously not going away. I got to go deeper than just going to my quote-unquote go-tos of how I got through the day. So that's why I went back to find a speech therapist.
Right on. So folks, I mean, think about it. Folks with that type of challenge, many of them don't even become successful loan officers. You have pursued a career, you have become a successful mortgage professional, you overcome your fear to stand up and do one-to-many. One thing that I always say is not enough loan officers are getting up in front of groups, doing lunch and learns at real estate meetings, just getting over that fear of public speaking. So, you've overcome that fear of public speaking. You've, taken it on to where you're now, part of your strategy is to be a leader in a community. I mean, this really is an awesome mortgage story. To me, I get, every time I interview you, bro, it connects at a deep level because you're such a, amazing guy that is, one, transparent with your challenges, and two, you've overcome them. So I appreciate that. Folks, keep the questions coming in. So Chris, we've given everybody, I think we've inspired them on some big ideas. I do want to help hit a few more base hits for folks. So, the concept of if you're not doing your mortgage coach video TCA, that's first base. Then second base is start creating videos that you post on YouTube. What's a third base hit? Obviously for anybody that wants to hit a grand slam and really invest in a media show, reach out to Chris, go deep on that. Maybe he'll refer you to Ron. Maybe you just have some questions that you want from Chris. But what's a triple? What's another double or another base hit for folks?
I just want to go back, Dave, to actually point number one, the TCA report. I think as loan officers, we're always trying to figure out how to get it in front of referral partners. And one thing that I was not doing that has become a must on every single TCA report that's tied to the purchase transaction is I CC the buyer's agent. Okay, what that does is if I can, I kind of give them a shout out in the email, like I did in that one right there. This one, the Russo, where he was just completely overwhelmed and he didn't know what direction he was going, and he was all anxious with me on the phone. So I tried to kind of take him down a little bit here, give Kerry a shout out. But what happens is then Kerry goes in, the agent, and clicks on the video. I've had so many agents tell me over the past year or so, geez, I learned something by watching the video. And then when they go to meet with their next client and they consistently see these videos coming from me, when they're referring people to me, the people are expecting the video. Sometimes they actually bring it up. Like, I heard you can give me a great report that will break down my options. So it becomes part of the agent's presentation on why they're referring me and how I add value. So you don't even have to ask me. Like, when I sit down with an agent, if I haven't done business with them yet or they've seen one of my videos, I'll have my iPad with me, which is what I normally take my notes on, and I'll go into my library in Mortgage Coach and show them a couple different videos and say, you know, I know you have a lot of options out there. There's a lot of lenders. I get it. Everybody's talking about rates and service. I get it. But are you finding that, you know, your current lending relationships, are they providing your clients this type of service? And I show it to them and I say, you know, people get overwhelmed by their options and all they see is rate and closing costs. When you present it to them like this, don't you think that would have, you know, a huge impact for your buyers? And then just let them talk. And I've never had an agent turn around and say, oh, please don't send that. You know, everybody's wowed by it, and it really is a must is to include the agent, because sometimes you think you're just dealing with the client, but you're letting a coffee meeting pass, a free coffee meeting, you know, where by tying in the agent and giving them their 2 seconds of sunshine, whatever you want to call it, and be able to circle back with them. It's amazing to see the agent's comments after the fact. And I've had situations where I didn't do a video, and the agent comes back to me and says, "Did you not include me on it?" You know, so it's great to hear that the agent relies on it, and it just strengthens your relationship with that agent.
So a couple things. One, I want to remind everybody in the handout section of the GoToMeeting, we have a video checklist. So what does a great video sound like with Mortgage Coach? There are some handouts that you can click on, and we design these for you to have them as a resource in your work area. Also, I'm getting lots of great questions, lots of great comments. Obviously, I like this one from Jim. Jim, thanks for sharing. He just said, love Mortgage Coach, all caps. Just had a couple alerts come through while listening to the call. It doesn't get any better than that. Right on, Jim. Thanks for sharing that. So, folks, we're in the last 8 minutes of this call. As everybody knows, I like to end on time. So you've given us base hits. What are anything else come to mind? We got 5 more minutes of talk time, of interview time. I do want to wrap it up with some takeaways and tell everybody about next week's call. By the way, with Dan Keller, another awesome mortgage professional that leverages media. You know, that next week's call is going to be all about how to create videos that generate referrals from your database. So we're going to have Dan Keller next Tuesday, 9 o'clock, completely rocking it out on video. Little reminder to everybody on that. But, and by the way, next week's call, I would say not only is it going to be a great call for you as a mortgage professional, it'd be a great call to invite your realtor too. So it would help inspire them and encourage them to work with you to work on both databases, both the mortgage professionals database and the realtors database, using video to get leads. So we're gonna crush it next week on video. But anything else come to mind? Any other ideas? Because by the way, remind me, I do want to also showcase how Dave Ramsey is using Mortgage Coach and how the Churchill guys are using it at a big event to drive leads. So I don't want to forget to share that as we close the call. But Chris, any other big ideas, or by the way, little ideas? Let's focus on grinding and focus on little ideas that everybody could literally implement tomorrow, like CC your realtor. Hello. Doesn't get any easier than that.
It doesn't get any easier, but I think a lot of times it's overlooked because it's almost too easy, right? But you know, being consistent, if you're going to choose to go down the media path, you know, it doesn't have to be big out of the gate. Get comfortable with it, but just be consistent. You know, one thing that I've realized by being in the media now is that they're hungry for solid, real information. You can reach out to your local paper, reach out to your local TV station, explain who you are and have an idea, present it to them in a very short format where it's a quick read, and you can distribute it to a lot of the local media outlets, and you know, be consistent with it. You know, a lot of times people aren't going to respond, and I've seen that. But I've sent different things now through the show, trying to grow the brand of my show. And you don't need a show to do this, but you reach out with an idea and you get no response, no response, no response. And there's that one day that they're looking for something, and next thing you know, they're pulling you in to do a 30-second bit on a TV piece, or just like a quick interview that falls into one of their big interviews. There's so many different opportunities out there. They're hungry. The media is hungry, so don't be afraid to reach out. And not just, you know, be consistent for sure.
I would love to, when we have our call with Dan next week, and I think it's, you know, think of base hits. This is a base hit where literally Denise took a screenshot of a mortgage coach, graphs and charts. It's a strategy, you know, conventional 10%, FHA 10%, FHA 3.5% down. Call it a mortgage strategy, netted it out with a nice headline, and released it out into the wild via social, you know, on Instagram, on Facebook. So first of all, I'm looking for examples of how you're using Mortgage Coach out there in the wild of social. So I'm going to showcase a few on next week's call with Dan. Feel free to, you know, forward it to me and keep me in the know. I also want to remind everybody, you know, when you're doing, I mean, big events, and obviously a Dave Ramsey Smart event with a couple thousand families in it, that's a big event. But whether you're doing a lunch and learn and you're to a dozen or a half a dozen realtors, whether you're doing a home buying event and you've got 10 to 20, whatever it is, make sure you're leveraging the mobile device. You know, again, this is a big event strategy where they're driving hundreds/thousands of families through a rent versus own, why own versus rent, or, you know, why move up now. You notice in this case, they've hooked up, you mentioned, Chris, that you bring your iPad out to realtor meetings. Well, they've got it in an event. But, you know, whether you're having families come into your office, you know, leverage your mobile device, you know, teach families how to share it. These are little base hits where you could be creating media, leveraging modern media for a family. You could take that to a real estate meeting. You could take that to a bigger event. And then, of course, in Chris's case, you know, he's broadcasting it each and every day and every week. So I do want to remind everybody, Dan Keller is my guest next week. Also, I'm going to give Chris the last word here with last ideas. Do let us know what you thought of today's call. Did we knock it out of the park and surpass your expectations? You know, did you get a few takeaways? And if you're new to Mortgage Coach or you're a guest and you want to get a demo and learn more, answer the last question. You'd like a demo to learn more. So, Chris, you've got 2 minutes. We're wrapping it up. I like to wrap it up on time. Any last words of wisdom for the Mortgage Coach community? You're speaking to a group of loan officers that believe in turning education into a competitive advantage. Any last ideas or suggestions?
I'm going to actually share an idea that I'm kind of coming in from left field with it, but it just hit me. I've been utilizing a technology recently called BombBomb. It's a video technology. I don't know if you're familiar with it, Dave, or not. And I think it's actually built for agents. That's how I found it. One of my agents was using it. But for someone who doesn't love being on the phone, I love people to be able to see me talking. It just makes me feel more comfortable. So it's a quick video thing. Once again, similar to Mortgage Coach, you can record it from your phone, tablet, from your desktop. You can share a message, ask for a meeting communicate with a client, whatever it may be, in a simple video format. They make it very simple for you, just like Mortgage Coach, and it's a great tool to get in front of agents. That's how I'm asking for coffee meetings now. I'm using video through BombBomb to ask for a meeting, and had tremendous amount of success with it.
Right on.
BombBomb.com.
Beautiful. Appreciate that last nugget. And one last thought, one last reminder for everybody, make sure you come to our mobile training, and we'll teach you how to leverage everything we do in mobile and how to get meetings with realtors, how to get more referrals from realtors is the focus. So last closing comment, there's a lot of Mortgage Coach loan officers on this call that they don't give every family a total cost analysis. They're not adding the video. They're just doing it when they get grinded. Why should they give every family a total cost analysis, in your opinion?
Why should every LO be giving their family a total cost analysis?
Well, yeah, why not just do it when they grind you? Why give it to them all the time?
Because most people don't realize their options, and you can explain it to them over the phone, but when they're able to see it in the visual platform that Mortgage Coach provides, it's a no-brainer, and that's sticking with them. And a lot of times the client, you might not realize it, but the client a lot of times views it as you going above and beyond for them, and that creates referrals and potential opportunities for you as well. So I just have my routine down, my system, and it's a must for every client. It just makes sense to do it, and from a time standpoint, it takes less than, from A to Z, it takes less than 5 minutes to get one done. So complete no-brainer.
Right on. So everybody, this call is a wrap. We'll see you next Tuesday with Dan. Hope to see you Wednesday on our mobile training. And, Chris, thank you so much for the value you delivered today, the transparency, the ideas, the inspiration. You are an inspiration, brother. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate the opportunity. Take care.
Take care. Bye, everybody.